Hi there, I'm Mr. Miller, Brady Middle School Technology Integration Specialist.
And hi, I'm Mrs. Vargas. I'm the Occupational Therapist for Brady Middle School.
And today we're going to show you guys Read and Write for Google Drive and Google Chrome, which is a tool that Orange City Schools has paid for all of our students to be able to use, and it's a very powerful tool to help you with your reading and writing. So the main place where you use it is in Google Docs, and you'll probably notice already that when you're in a Google Doc, you see this purple symbol up here. If you click on it, then you see the suite of tools that they have for you pop up, and we're going to talk about a few really useful ones. The first one we want to show you is the prediction tool. It looks like a crystal ball, and if you click on it, what it'll do is start to predict the word that it thinks you're going to type next. So now, even though I haven't put any letters in, it's already predicting the most common words for a person to type. And it actually learns from you as you type more and more and use it more and more, and those words will look different for different students if they use the prediction tool a lot. So notice if I want to type in read, and I put in the R, it changes, but read isn't in the options yet. I need to get a little bit closer to the word I want, and now read still isn't in there, but I see reader. Now I get the A in, and there's read as my fourth option.
Read.
And notice that when I hover over it, in case I'm
Again.
really not sure about the spelling of the word,
Read.
it reads it out loud to me, and then I can go, yeah, that is the word I want. And then if I want write, I put in a W, write's not there yet, I put in an R, and now I see it as my second option. I
Right.
click on it. Okay.
A.
And notice that when I type in, I'm going to type in middle school students here. It'll take a couple letters before it gets middle, just 2 letters. And
Middle.
notice that already it's predicting school for me
School.
because that is a word that commonly comes after middle. So Middle East, Middle Eastern, Middle
Eastern,
Ages,
Age,
Middle School.
School.
So I don't have to type in the letters. It is interpreting my language that I've put in there. And also students, if I just get an S in here, it's going to pop up at the top. Not the most
Students.
common S word, but it's the most common S word to come after middle school.
And a couple of good tips to use word prediction. The first one I would say is to not type more than 2 to 3 letters before you start looking at the list. And also, I think it's pretty obvious, but sometimes students forget about this. Make sure that you have a sentence in mind before you start typing. And then why should I use this tool? I would say that if you're a bad speller, but you can come up with maybe the first 2 to 3 sounds, the first 2 to 3 letters in a word, this would be a good tool for you. However, if you're a really bad speller, I would recommend that you use the speech input tool, which we will show you shortly.
And then when you're all done using the prediction tool, you just click on the crystal ball to make it turn back off. Okay, the next tool we want to show you is the Playback Feature. So if you'd like to have the text read aloud to you, the Playback Feature will do that. You click the play button and it starts reading from wherever your cursor
Read
is.
and Write for middle school students. Our Read and Write family of
Notice that it keeps going through the document all the way to the end, starting from where my cursor was, and then I can pause it or stop it if I need to. Now, if there's a certain portion that I want read and I want nothing else read, I can also highlight it in advance, like that. If I just want this phrase and click play,
from reading on-screen text aloud to researching and checking written work.
and then it only goes to
From
that
reading
part.
on-screen text
Whereas if you started from the beginning, it would go through the end of the document.
All right, and then why should I use this? I would say it's a great tool to read back what you write. A lot of students find this helpful when they're finished typing something, and to hear it back because it helps you hear mistakes, and then they can go back and fix anything that they need to fix.
The next really useful tool in Read and Write for Google Drive is the speech input tool, which you can access using this headset with the microphone right here. You simply put your cursor where you want to type, click on that speech input tool, you'll see this little microphone button pop up, and then you just continue talking and it will type it in as you go. You click on it to stop it, and then you can also access this if you'd like to from tools and then voice typing right down here to get to it a different way in case you don't have access to read and write at home or something like that.
So some good tips for using the speech input tool. Definitely know exactly what you want to say before you start dictating. I find it most helpful to read from a draft. So if you've done like a first draft and you wrote it by hand, or even if it's typed or anything like that, just dictate from that, and also practice speaking the sentence clearly and slowly. I would go one sentence at a time. We usually do 3 to 4 words at a time, and like I said, practice before you do it. then dictate it. Then you can actually stop this speech input tool, just like Mr. Miller just showed you how. Another thing to keep in mind is that the tool does make mistakes. It will definitely make errors as you're dictating, and it's best to just finish that sentence, go back and fix the mistakes, and then keep dictating. And then why should I use this? We find this the speech input tool most useful for students that are either very bad spellers, and so you can't use the word prediction tool very well, or if typing is just very slow for you and you feel like it's laborious and it's just so much work. And then third, I found that students that think better, or they write better when they can speak their thoughts out loud, those are the kind of students that benefit the most from the speech input tool.
Now, the next tool we want to talk about is the voice notes tool. Some students will find this very useful and other students might never use this one. But what voice notes is nice for is for leaving comments that instead of being typed are actual audio comments. So for example, if I'm looking at this and maybe I'm working with a partner on this document, and I'm thinking that right here where we refer to dyslexia, I'm thinking maybe we should provide a definition, and I want to explain to my partner why I feel that way, I can highlight that spot, come up here and click on voice note, and it's going to do similar to what it did with the other one, but the microphone is now up here, and I click on it when I'm ready to record my comment. So I could say, okay, I'm thinking that maybe we should define what dyslexia is here because our audience might not all know what it is. What do you think? And then when I'm done, I click insert, and it's going to go in just like a regular old comment. Now, when you look at the comment from the side, you might see it as a link. You saw it really briefly as a link there, but now I see it as a play button. I'm going to come over here. Okay, I'm thinking that maybe we should define what dyslexia is here because our audience might not all know what it is. What do you think? So you can see that if I need to leave a comment to my partner or kind of a note to myself or something like that, and I need it to be a little bit longer and not just something I would quickly type in, I could always use that tool to do it a little more quickly. Now, another neat thing about these is that these comments are also saved as audio files in your Google Drive. So there is a folder in your Google Drive that's created the very first time you make one called My Voice Notes. So you'll notice inside of My Drive a folder titled My Voice Notes. Now, if you delete any of the files out of there, they'll no longer work inside of the documents. They have to be saved somewhere to work in here. The other nice thing, though, is that then you could use those audio files elsewhere if you wanted to, say, share them with your teacher or use the link and put them in somewhere else. So you could just use this as any time you want to record some audio.
So why should you use this tool? Mostly, like Mr. Miller said, just to add comments to a document or even to another student's document. It's just a fun way of adding a comment without actually typing in text. The only thing we want to remind you is just to be appropriate. Remember that what you are speaking is being recorded and is also going on your Google Drive, which is owned by the school. So we have to make sure that we're appropriate with our comments.
And as I'm sure you probably already know, anything that you do record in your Google Drive, even if you personally delete it, it is still traceable, just like anything you do on the internet. So you want to be very careful and think things through when you're doing anything relating to the internet, especially here at school. The next tool we want to talk about is the Screen Mask tool, which looks like a monitor up here, a computer monitor with a line going across it. The Screen Mask tool, when you click on it, will dim the screen, and then the area where your mouse cursor is will be white, so that you could, and it will follow your mouse cursor down the screen. Now, it doesn't follow the arrow keys on the keyboard. It follows your mouse cursor.
Why should you use this tool? This is a tool that's made for people who easily lose their place when reading. And even if you are a good reader and you don't often lose your place, it might just be helpful. It's a little easier on the eyes, and if you're trying to read something that has a lot of text, it'll help you keep your attention focused in the right place.
A really great tool that you'll probably really appreciate as a high schooler, and if you have access to this as a college student, as your texts that you're reading are getting more complex, you'll really appreciate, are the highlight tools. They go beyond just regular highlighting as you may think they do. You'll notice that you have 4 different highlighters up here, and you can highlight different things in different colors. So for example, if I am learning about the American Civil War and I need to understand the causes of the Civil War from the perspectives of the North and from the South, then I could use the highlighter to do that. So let's say I'm gathering facts about each. So I gather this one as a fact about the North, and I gather this one as a fact about the South. So I've continued through the document here and highlighted things about the north in blue and the south in pink. And now if I want to gather these highlights together to create a study sheet or a list of notes and quotes to use in a research paper, I click this button right here that looks like a recycling symbol with the different colored arrows, and it says collect highlights. When I click on it, it's going to ask me first, do you want to collect them by color or by position? Position would mean collect them in order. Color would mean group the blues and the pinks, which is what I want to do. And I can unclick yellow and green if I want, since I didn't use them. I click OK, and then it's going to create this separate document that has them grouped by blue and pink. So now I have my facts about the north in one area and my facts about the south in another area. I can go through and title these things, add additional notes to these things if I want to. I can unhighlight them now that they're organized if I'd like to. I could put bullets in front of them, however I want to organize this to help myself out. Note that it automatically names the document Highlights Untitled, so you probably want to change that name. It also puts it in My Drive, so you probably also want to put it in a certain place for organizational purposes. And it's also nice that it has the link to the original document right here in case you need to jump back to where the notes are. Now, one last thing about this, if you change your mind about highlighting something, you just highlight it again and hit the broom button right here, which clears away the highlights. So if I want none of the highlights to be here, I would highlight all of it and click that broom tool and make them go away.
And why should you use the highlighting tool? It's a great way, like Mr. Miller said, it's a great way to create and organize notes because you can make them different colors and then you can have it organized by colors. It would be especially helpful for research projects. And like we mentioned before, it might not be a tool that you use much in the middle school yet, but it's good for you to know for high school and for college as well.
Now the next tool is similar to the highlights tool. It's the vocabulary tool, and they kind of work hand in hand. The way the vocabulary tool works is first you highlight things, but here you're only highlighting words that you would consider to be part of your vocabulary list. So let's say I want the word union, the word Confederate, the word, I don't know how to work with two words here together. We'll try it out. The word Civil War. Maybe we also want slavery. We're getting the key terms out of this paragraph here, and maybe down here I want constitutional. So once I have all the things that I consider to be key terms highlighted, I then go to this button here that looks like a list of vocabulary terms, and it does something very similar to what it did when I gathered the highlights. It takes all of these things and moves them to another new document. Now what it does here, you'll see as the document opens, is it creates a vocabulary table for me, and that vocabulary table has 4 columns: the term, the definition, a symbol or picture, and a spot for you to write notes. Now, one thing to know is just like looking things up in a dictionary, some of the meanings that you get may not be the things that you're looking for. For example, here, I am looking for these definitions right here. These are the things that relate to the Civil War. These down here, union being the act of getting married, a trade union, these things are not what I'm looking for. So I could just go ahead and delete those as they make them. Okay. I can also come over here and add in different notes. Like I want to remember this is the North. I want to remember that the Union was anti-slavery and things like that. Maybe I don't want symbols in here. I could delete the individual symbols, or I can always delete an entire column by right-clicking in here and clicking Delete Column, and then that whole column will go away. Now, just like with the highlights list, this creates a new document, and it just titles it vocabulary list. So you will want to retitle the document to be something that organizationally makes sense for you, and click the folder here and put it somewhere other than My Drive to keep your drives nice and organized.
So this tool is especially helpful if you're reading a text that has a lot of difficult words. It's a great way, obviously, to organize vocabulary. To help you learn it as well, because then now that you have this great document with a bunch of vocabulary words you didn't know, you can then even print out that document. It can help you study. It's just a great way to organize your new words.
Now, as you can see, there are a bunch of other tools here within Google Docs that we did not mention, and that's because they're not quite as useful as the ones we did mention. But there is a dictionary up here if you need help defining words as you go. There's also a picture dictionary. In case reading those dictionaries is difficult for you, you can look at pictures to define the things that are there. There's the screenshot reader, which is great for reading things like pictures, reading the text in pictures. We'll talk about that in a moment when we talk about using this in other platforms. And then there's also right here next next to it is the speech maker. The speech maker creates an MP3 of highlighted text that you could listen to later. Now, Read and Write also works across Google Chrome and websites too. It doesn't have quite as many features as in Google Docs, but a lot of the same features are there. To access it, you go up to your extensions bar at the top of your Chrome window. You won't have nearly as many as me, but you're looking for the purple puzzle piece that says RW on it for Read and Write, and it'll pop it up right over top of your web page once it loads. Once it's up, you could drag it to wherever you feel is out of the way on the page, and then you'll see that a lot of the same tools that you saw in Google Docs are also here, and a lot of them obviously are very useful, but you could see most of the same things that you used before. One new one is the Hover Text tool. Hover Text is this text bubble with an arrow over it. When you click on that, it will then read to you whatever text you hover your mouse over.
The American Civil War was a civil war in the United States fought from 1861 to 1865. The Union faced...
And it'll continue from where you put your mouse cursor until it gets to the end of the page or the document. That's really nice on the web because if I just use the regular play button here, then it's going to start from the top of the page. It might read some menu items and all kinds of crazy stuff all over the web page. So it's much better to use that Hover Text tool if you want text on a web page read to you. And you turn it on by clicking on it and turn it off by clicking on it again. You also, much like in Google Docs, if you had a certain paragraph you wanted to read, you could highlight it, click the play button, and then the same thing,
34
pause
U.S. states
and stop work in the same exact way. So those are the two different ways to have it read on your screen. Now, some of the text on the web are actually part of pictures, and therefore this text reader doesn't understand that those words in the pictures are actually words. For example, if I scroll down the page down here to this map has a legend or key on it, but the computer doesn't see it as words. It sees it as part of the picture. So we could use the screen reader, which is this button right here, the screenshot reader, click on it, and then you drag around the area that you want read. Now, this is not a perfect tool. It sometimes misinterprets words and letters, especially the worse the picture is, the less likely to read it accurately. But once I let go, you'll see this colored bar along the bottom go as it processes the text.
Battles of the American Civil War Theater 1861
and then it reads it all to you. And until you click the X to make this box go away, the play button stays down there so that you can continue to have it read over and over again if needed. You'll notice it is not perfect, as when it got to the word war right here, it read it as Y because it couldn't tell exactly what letters that A and that R were, probably because they're too bold. So I click that X and then that goes away. That is the screenshot reader. The screenshot reader is also really great in other areas, like in a Google slideshow, like this one right here. So if I jump over this Google slideshow, we'll notice that the regular text-to-speech does not work in a Google slideshow or in a PDF or areas like that, but the screenshot reader works great. Click on it, drag over the area you want read to you, or even the whole slide if you want, and once it processes it
among the 34 U.S. states in January 1861.
And again, stop when you're done and click the X when you want it to go away. Another useful tool for you when you're out there on the internet is the Fact Finder tool. It's just like a Google search, but it saves you a little bit of work. So say I don't know what mobilization works, I could highlight it and click this button that looks like a globe with a magnifying glass next to it. That's the Fact Finder. And all it really does is do a Google search for mobilization for you. It opens up a new tab to google.com, and it's already searched for mobilization, and I can see the results right here. This way you don't have to know how to spell it to do your own Google search. Next, the highlights tools are very, very useful on a website, especially a complex article like one on Wikipedia or another site like that. Remember, you can highlight different things in different colors and then create a notes sheet or even a vocabulary sheet if you want to. The last useful tool we want to talk about here on a web page is the Simplify Page tool. It's not a perfect tool, and before you think that it's creating some easier reading assignment for you, you have to remember that this is being operated by the computer, not by a person. So sometimes when a web page is simplified, you lose some of the actual important information because it's just a computer doing it and trying to make it simpler for you. So only use it when you really want to get just a basic understanding of a web page, not when you have to get all of the understanding of all of the content that's on it. But anyhow, if we click it here, you'll see it opens a new tab, and the very first thing it does is just reduces the clutter from the website. So it takes away the images, it takes away the buttons buttons along the sidebar, takes away the buttons along the top. It takes away any search boxes and things like that to make it much, much simpler for you to read. And then once you're on it, you can also even further simplify this page so that the words that are on the page are even easier for you. But again, remember that when you do that, sometimes you may lose some of the meaning of the text, and some of the meaning might get messed up because, again, it's just the computer doing this for you. But if I click the minus, you'll see it'll get simpler and simpler as I click on it, and it'll continue to reduce the complexity of the text that's down below.
Okay, so last couple things we wanted to leave you with before we finish. Not all tools are available in all apps or all websites, as you've probably noticed, and especially in Google Slides. I noticed in the past when we've tried dictation in Google Slides, that definitely does not work. So I wanted to mention that as an example. If you do wish that you had access to some of the tools that are not available, you can always copy content from a website that you're working on or from Schoology, and you can copy and paste it into a Google Doc, and there you should be able to have access to them. So the final thought that we wanted to leave you with is you can actually control the settings to read and write. If you click on that settings picture, you will see that you can change the voice on the speech. When it's reading back to you, you can change the speed of it. You can click or unclick continuous reading. You can even do, I think, different languages for translation. And then some other neat features on here. You can actually turn off some of the tools. I know that the read and write, as great as a program is, they're constantly adding, and it is great that they're constantly adding new tools. However, it's making the toolbar very, very busy. You can see how many different tools we have here. So if you notice that there's certain tools, features that you never use, you can actually turn them off. So if I never really, I don't think I'm going to use that picture dictionary, I can actually turn it off. If it works, and it'll actually stay off, and it'll get removed from my toolbar. And I believe that is it. Oh, you can also reorder features. So if the ones that you use the most, you can actually put closer to the beginning of the bar.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you so much.
If you try it out and you have any problems with it, please let us know.